skin, because you wouldn't use this to cut skin. You'd use this to cut the skin and this to cut the bone.
Okay.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Happy Halloween.
This edge here, you'd use this to cut the skin to get down to the bone,
Yeah.
and then use this to cut the bone.
He was at the,
Yeah. Yum, isn't that nice? Here, bite on the stick while we cut your leg off.
So John, I brought some of these.
There was a-
which are
there was
kind
a
of
show on
appropriate without joining.
something. A couple years ago, I saw it last year. It was Ozzy Osbourne and his son, and they went. It was like they traveled from Florida all around the country, ended up in Alaska. And I can't remember where it was, but there was a Civil War museum that they went to, and they were talking about. Yeah, I think they were engaged, right? And they were talking about.
Oh, I'm
This
sorry.
is yours.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, they were talking about
thank
how
you,
horrific
thank you.
it was,
Oh,
the
yeah.
surgery.
Yeah, but you need that.
Bob Tucker's gonna be on tonight. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, that's
Oh,
sorry.
by Zoom?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Right.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hey, how are
Oh,
you?
you had your group,
I have my.
you had your big group going around the scavenger hunt.
Yes. Is everybody sitting?
You are. Oh, no, it's right there. On the Edelquan spot.
You want me to sit down over
This way they can see you.
This
You're there.
this was
You wanna
Lou's
hide, that's the-
flyer. I found many copies of it. If anyone wants to
Right.
join, because I thought it was still appropriate.
Because were you able to do this?
It's
warm in
Oh,
here,
yeah.
right? What about if we keep this door open?
Starting up in Then just go around in Kingston. Yeah, I took pictures of everything.
Since I kept borrowing.
Yeah.
Well,
There was a woman over at the bridge,
Yes.
and she had this wonderful book
Oh, the wonderful book.
put together by a kid.
The wonderful book.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
we're
right.
gonna have a
He
talk
was
on
a
that
freshman at
on the
Notre Dame High
On the
School.
14th. Yes, it was his senior, it was his final year project at the Yinghua School, which was on Laurel Avenue in Kingston.
Oh, okay.
And you have to do something public service, and most people like clean the yard or something. But he decided to write a 600-page book
And get it published.
and it's self-published. Yeah, it's wonderful. Be
Yeah, she
available
was
at,
showing.
We gotta get a copy.
at his
from the
talk.
library.
Well, they already do.
We do?
You do.
All right, I
Pretty sure that it's been given to you.
The book is this thing.
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh,
Anyway, 14th, he's gonna talk about how he made it. So
Wow.
Tuesday evening at the Kingston Firehouse.
what thing?
Did you see that?
Tuesday
Yes.
evening,
It was
14th.
reading and
Write it down.
to this
Oh, yeah.
bridge.
You
It's
want
gonna be at
to
the firehouse?
Yes,
They
Kingston
just got it
Firehouse.
on
Here.
Saturday.
electronic writing.
It's a book there, yeah, but they- about the history.
But,
Oh,
that's telling me that we're gonna meet.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
We're Ed.
And this was,
Oh, he's right there.
It's right here.
Oh, we're
I was gonna
good.
say, thank you. Okay.
I'm here. I didn't see you there.
Hello.
Hey, Randy.
Hi, hi, come on in.
Hi, I'm
hello.
Nina.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you? Hey, John, how are you?
Okay, I'm still letting people in, so we'll start in a couple minutes. Charlie, what time
Yeah,
does
they-
it start?
I believe it says 7:30. Sure hope it's good. Check the khsnj.org website
Okay.
as it gets close. I'm the one who's in charge of putting down the time. And did I write it down in the minutes? No, I didn't. Oh, well. But I'm pretty sure it's 7:30.
See, Joe, see you. Computer. You can have it not with us anymore.
Okay.
At Titus Farm, I had that, there was a woman there who introduced herself. She said she was part of the original Bakery family. Yeah. And that was very interesting. Because she took, we have the South Brunswick book, the one book that they have. Gives everything back. She's telling me all the people around with her on the cover. Oh, that's my grandfather, that's my uncle, that's my, and I'm going, oh, okay.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
7:00. School
Okay.
day, a school night.
Okay, I guess we'll start now. It looks like we have some people joining us from home online. But tonight we're going to talk about the Slack-Carroll House and its history. It's interesting history, and what happened about 23 years ago. Let's say approximately that, right? About year 2000, right there.
2000, yes.
Yeah. So we're going to start now, and it's just a brief introduction to what's going on. So the Slack-Carroll House was a doctor's house, and also it was part of a hospital, probably the only hospital in Middlesex at the time. How many beds were upstairs there? There was
2 bedrooms.
a 2-bedroom hospital. It talks about how Slack, always the original doctor, and we'll talk about that more. There's actually a presentation component of this where they do a much better job of explaining things. So we'll get to that. But there's the way the house looks, and it looks like that today on the right. There's a picture of Dr. Slack. He was a Civil War doctor. Just to give you an idea of, we were lucky enough to have a photograph of him. And so this is Edgar Carroll, one of the other doctors there. There were 3 doctors. And Seal Leadham will mention that in this video about who the other doctor was. They do a whole overview of who was there, but this is Edgar Carroll. And there are people that remember him. I think that he was mentioned in Abe Dobin's book about Edgar Carroll, and people remember him. And I think Abe said he was a little bit afraid of him at the time. So he was I guess a stern guy. And there's a picture of his family out there next to it. And then what we have here as a picture of Joan Luckhart, and she's going to explain the history of the house with this link here. And I'm just going to play the video, and it's a pretty good video. And I'll start that now. And let's see here. I just have to figure out the technology here. It takes a minute. Ooh. That's not what I wanted to do. Sorry.
Close.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. And we want to play in. Let's see. Yes. Okay. So if this is playing here, put the video. Sorry about this. Yeah, and there's a way I can do this. Just bear with me. I'm sorry. There's a way we can get the advertisements out of here. I'm waiting.
Yes, we live in a Victorian house that was built either in the late 1800s or early 1900s, as were all of our neighbors. And the DVCC started because a realtor came to us and all of our neighbors and wanted us to sell our homes and tear them down and put up a what was to be a pharmacy. Largely an idea that we realized would end up with an empty pharmacy in about 5 years, since there are other stores that would be going up. All of our neighbors had renovated their houses and had put a lot of effort into their houses and liked old houses. So we got together and we said, nope, we're not going to sell, even though they offered us money above market value. And we said we just think we should get together and help each other save those houses. And that's what we did. And that's how we got started. Some neighbors down the street, the McDermotts, which live across from the elementary school, they came up to me and said they're going to tear down the Slack House. And I said, what's the Slack House? So they said it was the historic house that a doctor had lived in. And Mrs. McDermott was pregnant at the time and said that she was going to lay down in front of the bulldozers. And I thought that was a pretty dangerous thing to do. So we brought it to a meeting and we said, what should we do about that? So we decided to talk to Wawa, which was the group that were going to tear down the house. What they had done was they had prepared the house for demolition, which was required by ordinance. So they had already started to fill the basement up with gravel, and they had already removed all the asbestos, which meant they'd pretty much taken all of the plumbing out. as well as the heating system. And they'd taken the asbestos shingles off, leaving a building that was covered with black tar paper that was peeling off of the clapboard that was underneath. So we said, well, we'll talk to them about saving the house. We talked to the mayor, and we talked to the town planning, and we talked to the zoning. In order to have a demolition, you have to have a demolition permit. And the deputy mayor and the mayor at the time said they would support our effort to not give them a demolition permit. And that's what they did. They refused to permit them to tear the house down. And Wawa then appealed to the county Board of Planning for a demolition permit. I was invited to go to that meeting, and it's not open to the public. It's just the petitioner who can go. But the planning board at the county level allowed me to speak. And I pointed out that Wawa wanted the whole, what is about an acre of land at the time, to extend their parking lot. But the house sat on a corner of that lot, not in the middle, but in a corner, and it didn't come anywhere near any of the parts that needed for the parking lot. It was just going to be torn down. The planning board at the county level said they couldn't deny the permit. They took a break. They negotiated in the hallway with the attorney for Wawa, and they all rushed in because they love historic houses, and they said, "You'll get what you want." And I wasn't sure that's what we wanted, but they essentially saved the house. We negotiated an agreement with the town at the mayor's office with Wawa, and the negotiation was that for the first year we had to make the outside look pretty. And they didn't care how long it took us to make the inside pretty or fix it. But we had to make the outside presentable so we wouldn't detract from their business. And that's what we did. And they wrote it into the deed, and they gave us the house. So then became a huge effort for that first year. And actually backwards of the way you normally would work. Usually you do the whole inside and strip everything. We had to do everything backwards. So that's how we started. Well, the Girl Scouts came to our rescue, as did all the neighbors from Kingston and from Dayton. Everyone pitched together. We had a tree had hit the house, so we had a lot of tree people come, and they volunteered time. We had to remove about 30 feet by 10 feet wide by about 6 feet tall of logs that were just stacked all over the place. And so different trucking companies came and helped take things away. The Midco Waste donated dumpsters. We didn't have to pay for them. We just had to pay for the fees for getting rid of stuff. So we were able to take all the siding off, the tar paper off. We had to pull nails that had held the siding on. And hundreds and thousands of holes had to be filled. And the Girl Scouts, for their silver award, one of their awards, got a paint company in North Brunswick. They got the owner of the paint company, who only did marine paint, who was retired, and his son had the business now, to donate, I don't know, 60, 80 gallons of top quality paint. And he matched the color of the paint that was on the house originally. And the Girl Scouts said they'd paint the house. So we got a lot of adults to volunteer to scrape the paint, the old paint off, and we filled all the nail holes, and everybody worked, and the girls worked very hard. That was Barbara Lonato, and I think it was Rhonda worked on that, and saved the house. It looked really beautiful when they finished. We had Boy Scouts then worked on projects of taking porches, repairing porches, rebuilding porches, putting gardens in, taking out cement that was in the wrong spot, adding rose bushes, another Girl Scout project, So we've had a lot of different projects over the years, inside and out. And my husband repointed the entire basement, and he was a mentor for a lot of the Boy Scouts who rebuilt the porches. Lots of fun, and it's been a community activity.
Okay, now Seal's going to talk about the history. This is,
I became involved through my contact with Joan Luckhart, who was one of the founders of the DVCC back in 1997, probably, when I first started. I became involved with Joan Luckhart because of the Road to Monmouth program in 2003. And she was a great organizer, and she did all kinds of wonderful things. And we had a fair going on at Reichler Park. And from then on, I became more interested in Dayton and the story that she was trying to work on about the Slack-House. So I did a lot of research on the Slack-House, and we had an exhibit there called The Doctors of Dayton. I did the research on the history of the house, which was built around 1869. There were several people living in town in the 1860s, and there was no doctor in Dayton. And I think that they felt that the community was big enough that they needed to have not only a doctor, but adjacent to the Slack-House, on the other side of the Slack-House, is the First Presbyterian Church of Dayton. And the land was purchased at the same time for both the doctor's house, what became the doctor's house, and for the church. The Rowland family was involved in that, and some other families locally who lived in Dayton. They bought the land, and then for one price, and then the house was built that eventually housed the doctor, and then that was sold to him for another price, higher price. So we can assume then, because deeds only really talk about land, if the price change is significant, that there was probably structure built on the property, and that's why we assume that the Slack-House was built. And this now housed the first doctor. The first doctor was Dr. Slack, Dr. Clarence Slack, and then I did research on him, and then I found out there was another doctor who was there for many, many years, Dr. Edgar Carroll. And he was there up until the 1930s, and there were references to him in some of the books in the township. And I also found through my research that there was another doctor in between Dr. Slack and Dr. Carroll, named now Dr. Baldwin, and that all three men had graduated from Jefferson Medical College in Philadelphia. Although what we called medical education then was not the same thing as we think of as medical doctors today. So I did a research on them. We had a display at the library, at the Slack-House, and Joan asked me to participate in the board of the Dayton Village Citizen Coalition, the DVCC, and I've been on that for about 5 years or more. I don't really know when I first started coming to the meetings. That's what I know about the Dayton Village Citizen Coalition, as far as it was founded in an effort, I believe, to see no more buildings torn down in Dayton. The Dayton Village is a small community, but many of the historic buildings in the center of town were destroyed either by fire or for various reasons. And the town does not look like the pictures we have about what it looked like, say, 1900. And the Slack-House was next to what was the Wawa, the convenience store, and they wanted to expand their driveway, and they wanted to just take down the Slack-House, and the local residents said, no, we don't want you to take it down. And they prevailed, and they got permission to preserve the Slack-House, but there was a lot of difficult times that they had to do, and they still have a struggle, but they have a tenant in there now, helps pay the taxes and the rent and other expenses that they have in maintaining that Slack-House. Their goal is eventually to have a doctor's museum there, but that is, right now, they're trying to stay focused on serving the community. And the Dayton Village Citizen Coalition not only is interested in preserving the Slack House, but also trying to improve the community.
Oh, okay. So that,
Well, we get involved. We throw events. We try to do some.
I have to think about this now, or I'm going back here with the other. I have to orient myself. Sorry about this. Hold on a second. Okay, so first of all, does anybody have any kind of questions about what was presented so far? Any kind of questions about the Slack-Carroll House? I don't know if you wanted to say anything, Terry. Oh, here's a picture of the house right before it was going to be raised. It's just an interesting picture because you can see how all the windows were taken out. It was just, it was ready to be knocked over. There was gravel in the basement. I guess that was because that way they didn't have to worry about filling it in. So there's a picture of the way it looks back then. And here's some pictures of the scouts working on the porch because the porch needed some help, like it might again today. And there's some of the instruments inside from the Civil War museums. Can you imagine getting operated on with that with that saw there? There it is, right here. Yeah, we'll show that. Some work on the basement. But what I really wanted to contrast is this is the way the house looks today. Yeah, it looks more like this. This is a recent picture that was taken last year or 2 years ago when we had the scavenger hunt. But you can see how it was almost ready to be knocked down and it was saved at the last minute, and now it looks like that. So it's been restored, and there's a contrast between the two pictures of the way it looked right before it was going to be taken down and a picture from a few years ago. So yeah, it was an example of a community coming together and having their wishes known and to stop the development. So it's just a nice illustration of what can be done in a community when they put their minds to it. So this is just something we're putting an appeal out. If someone would like, if you just consider joining the coalition, it was recently named by the township. I think it's on a previous slide. So you're going to miss it here.
It's up the top of it.
Yeah. So it was recently designated a historic house by the township. I think sorry. Yeah, and there it is. So that was something that happened. When was that? That was in June
this year.
It was May of this year. So that was a
It
big.
went live in October, in July after the waiting period.
So it went all the way from almost being knocked down and turned to a parking lot to now being part of the register for the township for a historic building. So it just goes to show what can be done when people come together and band together and make their wishes known. So I don't know if Terry, do you want to add more about this?
I put together a little fact sheet too.
Oh yeah, we
for,
have some here.
So just indicating, sort of updating everything since we became a locally designated historic
Well,
site.
actually, yeah, if we could pass it down, yeah.
But so some of the things I wanted to point out that the video didn't elaborate on was how much support we got from the Township Council and also particularly former Mayor Gambakis, who's they were very instrumental in the negotiations with Wawa, and I think it was because of them supporting the local residents and the passion they had to save the building that we were able to save the house. So I wanted just to emphasize how important that was to get the support from the town council and the mayor. So some of the other things I wanted to talk about is I think you heard Joan say they had 1 year to make it pretty, and just the effort to bring people together. I mean, there's pictures of Roseanne's husband pushing lawnmowers with masks on, with the windows all boarded up, and so many people came together. To pull nails, to paint, to spackle, it was just a really huge effort to get it done in 1 year. And and I think Wawa doubted that it could be done. I really believe that, because they were periodically coming and checking on the house to see what progress was made. And I think they fooled them, that.
So they're maybe betting that it wouldn't be done, it
Yeah,
would be a
I
parking
really,
lot.
I
Yeah,
really
okay.
believe that. I really believe they
Oh.
didn't think it could get done. And as a result, once they met the requirements of of the settlement agreement, they repeated the house a year later, 2001.
And you can see how far it came because without the windows in it, so all, even not just paint,
Can you go back to that? Because that,
yeah.
that to me is stark.
Yeah, the contrasted one,
The
yeah.
contrast of the two.
Yeah, hold on, I'm going back, here we go. Yeah, this is the way it looked,
That's the way it looked.
yeah. So you can see there was not even any windows in the window frame, but it looks like part of the wall on the right-hand side was missing too. So, I mean, it was in really bad shape and it's just ready to go.
Yeah, a lot of people came in, I think as they were preparing for the demolition, people stole like pillars.
Oh, really?
Like on the right side of the building where the office is now, people stole copper piping out
Oh,
of the
because
building.
of copper,
You know,
okay.
just people just thought, oh, it's gonna get demolished anyway, so let's take it.
Yeah, but you're looking at windows and doors, and in some cases where originally go back to the 1800s. That just walked.
The sash rates.
What's interesting is if you remember the comment that they were concerned about how it would affect their business, and this is what they had, but but that's what it looked like, and you can put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah, I can understand why they wanted it done in a year.
But in the contract, it was the contract settlement, Terry,
Right.
negotiated, and Joan mentioned it. But there's a little something in there. Tell them about the little clause.
Oh, so there's also a reverter clause that if the Dayton Village Citizens Coalition fails to use the property for historic purposes, that it would revert back to Wawa. That was part of the negotiations. I don't know who was involved in those negotiations. I wasn't part of it. But basically, the house would revert back to Wawa. They would be required to demo the building and then basically maintain that area as open space. So, one of the concerns we had as a group, the Dayton Village Citizens Coalition, was that if this reverter ever kicked in, that 20+ year effort of, putting into the house of all these Girl Scout projects and Boy Scout projects and volunteer sweat equity would be for naught. So that's when former President Bob Tucker approached the Historic Preservation Commission and made a plea that we would like to see the house listed as a locally significant historic site. And he got unanimous support from the Historic Preservation Commission. And then from there, it went to the town council back in May, and they supported it. And then there had to be 2 readings or 3 readings of the ordinance before it became law, and it happened this year. So we got that another layer of protection of the house in the zoning laws of South Brunswick Township.
Can you explain what happens to the revert clause now that this is a historic building?
Well, it's still in the deed. We had requested that Wawa remove it, but they never, even though we hired an attorney, they wouldn't even.
Well, we met with the town manager, Brian, that left. And his suggestion, this goes back because we were concerned about this 20-year plus clause, which could make it open space or a new parking lot. You know what I'm saying? And it's still there. And so his suggestion was, you make life easy for the planning board and the council if the buyer and seller agree beforehand. So the coalition hired an expert, and that expert invested limited resources to reach out to Wawa. We got 0.
Yeah, because it's an asset on their books that we do that.
Well, it's
Because they definitely.
it's not an asset, it's a liability on our books. The cost of demolishing that building.
Yeah, it might be, but on their books.
They don't own the land. The
Speaking-
title is, if it reverts back, yeah.
They can carry it on their books as an asset.
Yeah. So it's.
Trust me, I'm an accountant. They have it on their books as an asset.
So the reality is that the issue is still there.
Yeah.
And that's what drove.
And you have to be very careful because if they get the property back, they'll get the deed reversed. Wawa has now what? Gas stations. They buy the property behind it and turn it into a gas station.
That was always a big concern originally.
Well, let's not put it down for tonight. But, you know, some of the other things I wanted to talk about was a lot of the materials were donated by a lot of businesses. So we have to, you know, tip our hat to a lot of businesses that helped out with paint, with materials, with, you know, free labor costs, like from the arbor, the tree removal companies that came to help out.
The windows on the doors.
But they also, the DDCC also had to take out home equity line of credit, you know, because they had to put heat and cooling system in there, and that cost money. We had to get professionals, you know, in there to do work, and we had to pay them. So we had to put a new roof on the flat part of the house. You can see to the right, that's the office and the doctor's office. And then about 3 years ago, we had to put a new roof on. So, you know, so there's all these maintenance costs, as you know, from being a homeowner. It costs money, but so it hasn't been an easy.
How long has the coalition been able to rent out? Is the cash flow? Thing that keeps it open is
Well, I know the tenant we've had for over 8 years, so she's been, yeah. And then there was you know, there was a couple. There must have been at least 3 or 4 tenants that I remember in the house. I think initially, you know, there was no one renting it because it wasn't habitable. You had to make sure that there was heat and electricity and whatnot.
Have you had it declared a charity? Do you have it?
We're a nonprofit, you're a 501c3. Yeah, that was done back in 2000.
The coalition.
Right.
So question though, if I understood it correct, going back to that the revolver clause, right? What is this being used today as? What was the purpose of this whole exercise? I do understand the history purpose, but what was that the only purpose, to save the house, to save the piece of history?
Yeah, to save the history and also to make it into a museum, which I was going to talk about.
Yeah, there's a small museum
Yeah, we
inside,
have a
which you
small
can
museum
visit.
in there.
So it's
Right.
open to the public,
So currently it is a museum, correct?
half of it.
Yes.
I mean, so
And,
we
and an
were,
office for our organization.
right, so it was a doctor's office and a doctor's home.
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever happened to it, and then Baba got it, and then everybody came in picture and they said, let's save the house. So the house was saved. It is what it is today. My question is that tomorrow, when the governance changes, the faces, the community, the residents changes, can this thing be reverted, or it is a done deal that Baba or nobody can touch it, and this is going to remain as is?
As long as there's the organization there, the Dayton Village, it will continue.
So how do we make sure that the organization is going to remain?
Well, I'm hoping more people will continue to join. We have to get more
Sorry, I'm
members.
not trying to be.
No, it's a good question. We could boycott Wawa also.
Yeah.
Sorry?
We could boycott Wawa.
Oh, no.
And also, it's a locally designated historic site. One of the other, we were looking for another layer of protection on the property. So that was one of the reasons that we went before the town council, to give it another layer of protection.
Like, how do we ensure that this remains untouchable? That's where I'm getting.
Well, probably to put a
Make it a
historic
historic landmark.
easement, to put a historic easement on it. So we, as landowners, could put an easement over the property, basically, but we would probably have to get input. I don't know, that's a legal question I'm not sure about, but that's another layer of protection that can be put on a property.
Because I would
protected in
worry,
perpetuity.
tell you the truth, there are so many things happening in today's day and age that lots have gone, and we cannot just unwrite a piece of history. Who knows, tomorrow people would say, hey, it has lots of commercial value, things may change there.
And that's one of the things about the township designation, is that doing anything involves the planning board, zoning board. And if somebody says, I want to take something that has a township designation as a historic site, and turn it into,
Yes, it,
a gas station or something. They'll say, why? And why haven't you thought about other places that do not involve destroying a historic site? So, my question is, what are you doing to make sure that it's a viable charity?
viable charity. Well, we do a lot actually in the community. I don't know if you've ever been to any of our plant exchanges that we've had there. It's sort of like the South Brunswick Garden Club, sort of associated with the Maine Village Citizens Club. So we have like a seed exchange in the early spring. We have the plant exchange in May around Mother's Day. We used to have a big picnic with COVID kind of around that. And then in the fall, this Saturday at the Grange actually, we're having the pumpkin lighting. So we basically collect food from the food pantry. We have a holiday lighting. We invite everyone to. That's free. We collect food from the food pantry again, and all the scouts. So those are some of the community activities to bring the community together. And then we have, several exhibits that were in the house. I don't know if you've heard. Seal talk about the doctors of Dayton. There was also another exhibit called Lotions and Potions, where we had another Girl Scout Gold Award was done to talk about this old book that had all these different lotions and potions, I guess years ago, like back in the 1800s, if you wanted to make certain perfumes or facial cream, whatnot, was found in this book. So the Girl Scout put together this little exhibit. In fact, if you Google it, Grandma's Lotions and Potions, you can actually pull it up online. You can see what it was. And then Joan did, because I don't know if anyone's familiar with Dr. Thomas Tenley, but he was a mosquito. That's right. So he lived in Dayton, right across from Indian Field School. His house is still there.
It's in the back when you go,
Yeah.
when you're on Bridge Road and you feel something, right? If you look on the left, in the back. That's the
Yeah, it's
house.
kind of tucked away. But Headley was a professor at Rutgers and was very instrumental in mosquito research and mosquito control methods. So she did a little exhibit about that as well. And then we have Marissa Bean, who basically put together our most recent exhibit that's there now. It's sort of the Civil War Medicine Museum. So there's some handouts here, but I'll pass them
Can you
around.
tell them what they're looking at? Pass them.
Yeah, so I took some of the instruments from the museum. This is like an irrigation syringe. So I guess years ago they used to fill it with water.
And this is from the.
Wash
Civil War.
out the wounds. We'll pass that around. These are little slants, I guess, that would remove bullets that may have been in. I could pass it down that way. And then the more gory one is the that's scary. Yes. So this was, unfortunately, during the Civil War, if someone's arm or leg was shattered, they cut it off.
That's
They
probably
became
just saw
an-
the bone.
Yeah.
Bob, when it comes around, because you made a good point. May have been used.
So that's how we're trying as a
Rose, did you
nonprofit.
pass that?
Now, one side, you look at one side it's got blade. They use the blade side to cut the flesh, and the bone side.
Oh, so it does cut.
That's gonna cut our
Irrigation.
So this one right here, you're saying this blade right here?
Yeah, on the, yeah,
This
the
is
blade
the-
side, that would be to cut the flesh, because serrated tear muscle and everything.
Yeah. How to get through.
Good for animals,
I
right?
guess just any surgeries or anything that clean out.
It's like
That
squeeze
would
it, I
clean up
guess.
more than you know.
Yeah.
You can see that.
Yeah.
8 to
I
6.
know, I got something.
You would think it would have been a little bit more rigid.
Yeah.
Well, they probably have more than one, depending on what had to be done. Probably had a set of these. That's what I would guess.
So
Yeah,
some of
that's
the
like
other
big
Girl
balls,
Scout
big
projects
to
and
take
Boy
a bullet
Scout
out
projects,
or
some of the
something
Boy
like that,
Scouts
so it's
redid the side porch in the
Yeah.
front of the office and the back of the office. We had another Boy Scout do
Right.
plastering that's there. We have the Girl Scout that did a butterfly garden in the back, another Boy Scout that did a Victorian garden in the back. We had another Girl Scout troop do a little garden around the bird bath in the front. So, we're always trying to work with the scouts, so that's, we try to mentor them, get them involved with civic community activities.
I have the butterfly garden poem.
Oh, yes, we gotta hear that.
That names.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, of the Girl Scouts.
You raised a very good point, because, what happens is people move on, things change. And in essence, part of trying to protect what you're looking at here in my eyes is a very special, unique place. For example, we have a historic district called Kingston, and that is the only district within 45 square miles, and Kingston's a very small part of it. There are other houses that are independently standalone, protected by the local town, A. Stevens Roads and others. All of them are basically homeowner occupied. This is the only one, to the best of my knowledge, which is a local township protected site, operated, kept by a nonprofit. Nobody of my age lives there, they rent it out. So, but you're right, you need to have, and the other part is that if you're familiar and you drive down George's Road, there is a feeling that, believe it or not, there are other interests or areas of historic preservation quality outside of Kingston. Okay, but the Kingston, so one of them is Dayton. If you look at, in my eyes, I think of that as a potential anchor for a Dayton historic district. If you look at that, even right next to it is a 160-year-old church, 1870, and then there are other houses in the area. The issue is that Terry and I and HBC, we need to go through and take steps. There is a NIMBY fear, not in my backyard, where if I owned a house on George's Road, I would not be happy with some organization coming in and designating my house without my permission. And if I want to change the outside of my house. And that's been an issue within Kingston Village, within the historic district. So there is a dynamic going on. But I believe that, and I think you would agree, that while Kingston is very special, thank God we have it, I think Dayton should be considered, I think Monmouth Junction could be considered, I think other parts, they're trying to identify them. But I could see this as an anchor to gradually go about and identify and protect. And if your house is designated as protected, there are different parameters to basically keep the outside as it might have looked 150 years ago. Inside, do what you want. But so that's, but and the other part that I see from an organizational point of view, I'm not pointing at you, but you raise a point, is you need new blood. Continue reaching out to the community because people move on, people pass on. So
How many
there is
houses,
a little handout
how many
sheet.
houses in Dayton are old enough to qualify for some kind of designation?
Say anywhere between 10 to 15, maybe.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's not a huge amount,
The
but.
Dayton Cemetery is also, those stones date back to the 1800s.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
Civil War soldiers buried there.
You could, if you go along there, George's Road goes all the way back to the very late years of the 17th century.
Oh, yeah.
That's how old that is. So anything along, in other words, if you start with the road, that's your oldest thing, that road. Okay, because that connected Indians Ferry to Cranberry. And so when Crossroads started, which is the old name for Dayton, the historic road, and it goes back even further than the late 17th century because it was an Indian trail. So if you take Kingston and say, oh, the Kings Highway goes through Kingston, and remember, half of Kingston is in Somerset County and half is in Middlesex County. Whereas Crossroads Dayton is all South Brunswick. So it would be great to have an all South Brunswick village in this historic landmark situation. But I would say you could justify George's Road. Remember the old houses way up, you know, as you go Dean's and all that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Okay,
Dean's has got
that
some
whole,
interesting
that
stuff.
whole historic, that you could work that whole thing.
I believe if you look at the Presbyterian church around the 1870 era, and a lot of those houses are in that era or slightly after. If you look at George's Road, that little house a little north of the Presbyterian church that looks like an old gas station,
Yes.
believe it or not, used to be a post office. Go ahead, I didn't know that.
As the Vince shop that's there now, at Five Corners, that used to be a post office as well.
Yes.
Well,
Where is
what you're saying
In
is,
Dayton,
The center,
yes.
yeah,
So if you know where Smile Logic is, next
Right.
is the Vince.
The miss, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that used to be a post office.
Yeah, but a lot of the houses,
the exact center of Dayton is Crossroads, where the roads cross.
yes,
That's the center. The Whitlock Tavern is probably your anchor site for whatever else you have. And that looks the part of something that would be really worth, you know, this and that, and say, this is the anchor of, and then you spread out from there. And as I said, if you go along George's Road, you can't fail, because you're gonna find a whole mess of sites that you could indicate, this is very historic and should be preserved. This is
if you were
this
to
is
drive
that.
by George's Road, the church, and then at the crossroad.
But you
If
should
go
also
to
include-
East-West Road, you'll see a lot of houses that look like they're easily over 100 years old.
Yeah, right.
mine is 110 years old.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
house that I live in,
Mhm.
belonged
You made a
to
good
Peter
point there.
Fessa,
We should be incorporating
and,
some
uh,
houses from Dean's.
when we got it, it
Yeah.
was 85
George's,
years
you got a
old,
couple
we've been there
houses
for
that
20.
are-
So it's
Talk
105
about
years
doing-
old, and if
yeah,
you
that's
walk
what
into my
We
basement,
talked about
we still
doing
have the
Dayton,
original
Dean's,
structure.
Mama Junction.
The place where I'm coming with my question is that in last 20-25 years,
Yeah.
the demographics and psychographics of the community has changed, and change is inevitable, right? It always comes. It is not necessary that the first generation that we see in last 25-30 years has the same mindset of the first generation who came 50 years ago, 75 years ago, 100 years ago. Right? Now, what happens, like you said, planning and zoning, agreed, but I have also seen historically in America that everybody unanimously agrees to rewrite or tear off a page of history.
Mhm.
Because I figured when I went for scavenger hunt last weekend, how many people were even there or would even care that, okay, General Washington marched from here. Even our school kids would not know about it, right? That here is a bridge, which is a piece of history. He rode from here with his troop and went to Governor's Island. And today, maybe we care about it. 50 years down the line, or even for that matter, 25 years down the line, people may not even care about it.
I thought that, well, that's where I think,
Governance changes, they might
Well,
even knock off, and I would just worry that
History teachers and.
The
Talk about that.
people around this table care. You wouldn't be here if you weren't at least interested. A challenge that we have, and you're talking about generations, the younger generation is able to be led. In other words, they can follow the lead of who are the people who are educating them. One of the difficulties that we have, and I'm talking from a personal point of view, is trying to get to the schools with the information that Randy and I have and other people have
Thank you.
about the historic things in the town,
Thank you.
township. The problem that I have, I'm slated, and this is tentative, for my first opportunity to give a talk to a class in the high school. But it's tentative. Last year's was wiped out. The reason is the schools are curriculum driven. They have no openings, they have no space, they have no time for things that aren't in the curriculum. There is nothing in the curriculum about local history. You can, and I'm a micro study historian. So in other words, if you take a local place like Crossroads, Dayton, and you make that your microcosm study, you can talk about all the world's problems, all the nation's problems, just by focusing in on that one community. You can do it. But the schools don't allow that to happen, okay? Because by the time they generalize on history and water it down, okay, because there's a lot of watering down that goes on now, so that you make it easy for the kid to pass the test of the stuff that they need to know. What they need to know can fit in a thimble compared to what they could know if they were exposed to the people who could give them the information. So that's just one example of the problem you have as far as getting the younger generation involved. The best way to do it with the Slack-Carroll House is to continue with the volunteerism and have the young people involved. So the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, in other words, that you have to do it. Don't rely on the schools because that's a problem.
Yeah, well, one other thing I wanted to mention real quick, we had a charrette that basically is talking about how to improve the downtown area. We got an architect to come and talk about it, and we had 3 or 4 high school board members that we had as junior board members on our board. And they just had this incredible interest, and some of them moved on and became like architects, in college. So, we spurred this great interest in these young people. So, there is an interest out there if you're given the opportunity.
Right. In other words, you have to create the opportunity.
Well,
And that's where we come in. In other words, you can't force the issue and you can't do it for them. And what you have to do is create a situation where they feel comfortable participating in it. If you do that, and I think the Slack-Carroll House is onto it because of what has already been done. It's just that has to expand and keep going. That's the thing.
Expand.
And then here's another thing too. We're talking about the youngest generation, in other words, the kids, okay? We're talking about us, sort of elderly, up in age, middle age, and so forth. Well, what about the young adults in the community? Where are they? I don't see much of that going on.
That's what I said,
where-
last
where you
residents
get-
of
you get the
20-25 years,
20-year-olds.
yeah.
Well, there's
They're
a
out there
couple
though.
things. Like,
Remember the person?
They are.
Yeah, so we found a very interesting young girl.
They're trans.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
But we were talking to someone that was interested in local history.
The
and-
girl,
Yeah, Rachel, right?
I'm not quite sure she was born, when she was born, her parents were in South Brunswick. But I met her in one of the council meetings. It was just me and her. Long story short, she went to school district here. Her parents live here. And she is so much interested in the town of South Brunswick. And that's hard to find, right? Because these kids, they climb the corporate ladder and nobody wants to come back and do anything with South Brunswick. So she actually had a data for Randy and me when I got, so I met her at council and I said, wait a minute, we have something called History Society. I use that room for my meetings, but I've never, really bothered to know about it. So I got her here, got her to meet Randy also along with, my other library stuff. And she is so involved. Unfortunately, she studies part-time. She's doing a master's in Connecticut. But still, long story short, again over there, that we have people who are interested. The problem is they are not aware. Like I do get that they cannot fit it in their curriculum, but what about a field trip? We are taking our kids to field trip here and there. We can, elementary school or middle school can actually come for a field trip just in the town or on 27.
We had the young woman who did the trail,
Oh, yeah.
right? I mean, so we've
That's
had
right.
some, and I think you're right about kind of having activities to bring them out, but we want, I'm sure that Rutgers and some of the other schools, hopefully they're not totally indoctrinated, but that there are history majors and there are young people who are interested. On a bright side, my next door neighbor, who I hated to see him leave at 87 years old, but I have two 20-somethings now, a young couple, who are very interested in the Slack House and the coalition. He's a PhD in botany, and she was a teacher, actually 2 years she taught in the township. They're extremely interested in the community. So, and you know, again, I think that we have to have events that bring them. Even the Grange now is doing more and more events.
And we
they've
have to
been-
just connect them. There is lots over here. It's a beautiful town. I love South Brunswick. After so many years, it's actually home to me now. I say this, you know, I said, now I'm doing because this is home to me. I've said my I do's to America, and I'm, yeah, I get emotional, but then this is home, you know.
Well, I think, I don't know, it's within the last.
Is this live? Are people watching?
Yes.
Yeah, there's
Oh my God.
11 people
There's
out
10
there.
people.
Is Bob there?
Yeah, Bob
Yes.
signed on at least.
By the
Did
way,
he come on?
Is Bob in?
That would be great
What's
to
that?
see if we can get Bob,
Show, we can see them, right?
Yeah.
our former president, the one that made the appeal to the
Joan Lockhart Thompson.
Historic Preservation Commission.
Is Bob there?
Yes,
That doesn't
Oh,
look
Bob,
like
here,
Bob.
I hear his voice.
Hiding in the corner.
Hi, Bob.
hi,
They can't see
great
you.
program.
We hear
And
you.
you can see the great community output that helped save and restore the Slack House.
Where are you, Bob?
It's wonderful to
He can't scream.
There's no video.
Yeah.
Yes, audio, that's good.
He's in Vancouver.
Vancouver, Canada.
Ooh.
I'm in Vancouver.
Yes.
It's raining.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Oh, I enjoyed the presentation. Thank you very much. As I said, all the sweat equity that went into saving that house is really amazing, and all the people that contributed.
And all the work you did on the house.
Yeah, gosh.
Amazing.
Bob is a carpenter at heart.
Self-taught.
Okay, so
But also a PhD
Yeah. Yes.
in marine science.
Now, who was
Yeah.
that? We did this from the
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a couple of things that this has reminded me of. One is that the Kingston Fire Company had a pancake breakfast just a week ago. And they asked the high school, because the high school students have to do community involvement.
right, community
Yeah.
service, yeah.
And just be aware of that. If there's a way to make a community service project, you might be able to. It's a ready source of people who are really enthusiastic. And this generation is a very enthusiastic generation. The other is that people move to Dayton because Dayton is there. You know, when the Slack House was just covered with tar paper, it wasn't a reason to move to Dayton. But now, I bet people choose how to live in Dayton because Dayton is there. And
There's a certain
they
passion.
like the idea of a community that has Slack-Carroll. It's like, remember that just being there is actually a way of doing historic preservation. And you have the obligation to keep reminding people that it's there. Like your pumpkin lighting thing is this thing, is a big community come and be together. That's your job, is to remind them of what the great place that they're in.
Fraternities do community service too. I mean, I think there are a lot of opportunities to get young people involved. We just have to have the bodies, not more than you.
Yeah, it would be good to find out how teachers can afford some time to do this type of local history stuff. I think in the education, because I come from the same boat, the education thing. The difficulty is that the teachers, after so many years of teaching, are going to go the easiest route. The easiest route is not to make waves, and the easiest route is to follow what they're told to do. They follow the curriculum. What you may want to do is check what is the curriculum. What's the social studies curriculum in South Brunswick? Where are the areas where local history could fit? And lobby to get something in there. Randy and I are willing to do something on it. I'm sure there are other people who are willing to do it. We have experts on local history, but the problem is it falls on deaf ears because they can't fit it in. They won't fit it in.
Then
I
I
guess
will
the
not
latter
fit
is more that they won't because for, I'm taking away the first 4 years, but in rest of the 8 years of a student's journey in a district, I'm sure they can fit one day. But it's
You'd
just
be
one day.
surprised.
Well,
We have a very strong teachers union in South
Well,
Brunswick.
the whole concept of the scavenger hunt is relatively new, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the third year.
Yeah,
And that to me is an example of doing something that's local, focused, and fun. And it's family oriented. And I can tell you, I don't know how many did you have this year?
I don't have a tally for this year because I still have to collect some
But-
things.
When we did it the first year, how did Slack-Carroll House? By the way, you remember how small Slack-Carroll House is? How many people do they have walk through?
Well, I was stationed as a docent at the Wetherell House, but we had over almost 95 people there because I think it was a beautiful day and it was after COVID.
yeah, the
People
weather is.
had cabin fever. They had to get out of their
Yeah, it was
house.
like one of the first community
Yeah.
events. Yeah.
And
after COVID.
it
So
Yeah.
was
how about the
mocked.
last scavenger hunt?
Last year or this year?
No, the one that we
Well, it
did,
was
the
raining.
week.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten a tally yet because I still have to collect all the passports.
Well, I remember going,
Yeah, that's
and
right, about
I-
15,
I-
17 people come through.
Robert von Zumbeck is,
And half the people being, I mean, everybody who came there.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Somebody
yeah,
might come
like
here in the
60.
I know, but that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's great.
But I'm thinking at least,
Build on that,
at least
build on
30 or more people.
Yeah, something like
came
that.
this past
Estimated.
week.
The
Yeah.
weather wasn't good in the morning, right? Didn't
It wasn't
That's
terrible, but yeah, it wasn't great.
Here's another thing that we need, and we've
Yeah,
been
it was.
talking
I got
about
it
this
so
for
good.
quite a few years. This township does not have a periodical that has the news of the township
That's
in it.
true.
Yeah.
We miss our local
Township
newspaper.
has
We miss
it.
it.
It's in the supermarket, you can pick it up for free. It's on a monthly, I believe it's on a monthly basis. South Brunswick Township, for whatever reason, we lost our newspaper. One of the ways that you can generate interest in things is to spread the word the old fashioned way, which is a newspaper. The computer does not work for this local stuff that we're talking about. You need a hands-on type of thing with pictures, like of the Slack House, an article about it, article about Dr. Slack, blah, blah, blah. You know, a moment in history, like Seal used to have the article in the Central Post. We don't have it. We need a group of people lobbying for a periodical, South Brunswick Township Herald, or whatever you want to call it, okay? We're handicapped, because when you have the treasure hunt, okay, when you have this and so forth, you have to advertise it. And one of the ways is to get it in print, get it out to people, and I say we need a newsletter. And we should have a monthly one.
Yeah, I
Like, we
miss the
can
local
copy
paper.
Franklin Township's one. If they can do it, we can do it.
But it's not the township that does it. In Ewing Township, where I live, we have something called the Ewing Observer that comes out every month. It's an excellent little paper. And I've contacted the people that publish it to ask if there could be something to be done in South Brunswick. I didn't get anywhere with it. No one ever wrote me back. But that's something that exists. It's a free paper, and they do a good little job of it. I could bring it in for an example, but it's a tabloid type
right,
paper
right.
every month, and they have a history section in it where the local
Yeah,
historian
we can
writes
do it.
every month.
We
We
can
just need
do it.
somebody to
Yeah.
You know, and to
Yeah.
that point, if you look through this little scrapbook here, it's all about things that have happened in the Slack-Carroll House and the
Yeah.
DVCC. It's amazing how well the newspaper talked about what
Right,
we did.
right.
The Sentinel and the Post.
Who,
Yeah.
who, what happened to the
Problem is
publisher of the
people
Sentinel? Is
don't
it gone?
read.
They just don't make any
So
money,
the
just like the
Sentinel,
Star Ledger.
the Sentinel was
I have my.
emphasizing
Can't
North
take
Brunswick,
multiple.
not that much on South
No,
Brunswick.
you're right.
I'm talking about the Central Post. The Central Post focused on South Brunswick.
Yeah.
And Hank Callett was spearheading that. He was one of the chief editors of the Central Post, and we've had him here for a poetry reading and all that. So he's still around, and he's asking about that too. You know, I mean, hey, how come we
You
don't?
gotta make, you have to have an economic business model.
We don't have
for
South
it.
Brunswick directory also, I mean, same thing, it can all be included in one,
Oh, yeah.
we don't have that, so we
Yeah.
always rely on Patch or My
Yeah,
Central
Patch is
Jersey
horrible.
to
because
cover it, if they do great,
Doesn't
lucky
have
they
content,
don't
it just
forget
has like
about
a
it.
headline
Yeah.
blurb stuff.
Well,
Okay.
so hopefully.
Randy,
For the.
Randy, it's Vicky.
Hi, Vicky.
Hi, I've had my hand raised. I just want to jump in here and just clarify a couple of things. Someone mentioned the seniors doing a senior project, and it's part of it's what I used to call get out of jail free. It's only in the month of June. So it's only for like 2 to 3 weeks that they would have a senior project that they would volunteer to help out. It also might be something for the seniors to put together this, like the editorial department to put together a paper or a flyer or something like that. Has anyone ever been to the Board of Ed meetings to bring up the fact of introducing local history?
Yeah, I've tried through Mike Mitchell, who's running for the board. He has been on the board. And I don't think Mike has had much success. I've tried an awful lot. Attending the meetings, I've seen them on TV and they look like a slumber party to me, so I don't like those types of things. And they limit your time, and I don't like my time to be limited, so I'm gonna stay away from Board of Ed meetings. Yeah,
The squeaky wheel
right.
gets the grease. That's the slogan of the Board of Ed meetings. So you
Right.
do have to have a presence, you know,
Right.
to be there. But
Well, I have something that one of the members running, Joyce, I forgot her last name. but
Rogers,
Say again?
Joyce Rogers,
No, Joyce Menta.
Yeah, she's right.
Meta. Okay.
Now, she was mentioned here as a woman of substance in South Brunswick history. Well, this is where she can, toe the mark and come up and prove her worth. Should he win, obviously.
And it would really be nice if there were field trips, but I'll tell you right now, there are no field trips in South Brunswick and haven't been in years. We don't have the budget for it, so the kids don't go anywhere.
I don't understand. We don't have the budget. We have the awfully high property taxes,
Mhm,
one of the highest in the state.
mhm.
So, cut somewhere else. I mean, come on. I mean, not you, but I mean.
Right. I don't work for the Board of Ed anymore, but it would be nice. Just FYI, Dayton School is no longer, the school is completely set up for preschool handicap. So the entire school consists of preschool handicap classes and the free preschool. Dayton School, Dean School would be the one. Dean's at Brooks Crossing is the other elementary school. And if there was some place that the kids could walk to, like do a field trip, how they have a field day, that might be something that could be done. Or even Crossroads, for them to do a walking field trip, that they could walk to something.
It's walkable.
I guarantee you this, I can design a walking trip for every single school in South Brunswick.
That would be awesome.
Designate archaeological dig site, which I've been trying years to do. Falls on deaf ears.
I mean, it would be nice that if each school had their own history like around it. Like I live right by the high school, the newer high school, but to find the one room schoolhouse and the Stouts house and the Roland house and the farms and whatever. And that would be awesome. I mean, you know, I worked at the high school for 20 years and I just happened to take an interest there. But, you know, Dayton School, Dean School, Brooks Crossing, there's, well, I'm sure there's something over on that side. But,
Yes,
you know better than I do.
it can be done, but you have to get into the school system and get to the teachers, the administrators, et cetera. And I have a very difficult time doing that.
Okay.
Gotta go in with the Viking hats and make a big thing at the board.
Storm the
Yeah,
barricade.
that makes sense.
I was going to say, yeah, what about starting with the principals? I could get you an appointment with Peter Varela at the high school.
Wait, puts it on the.
Great.
Puts it on the video. And then when you're going for.
Great. Tell him Ed Belding wants to talk to him.
Right.
Okay, Ed, I will.
And
Yeah.
I don't mince words.
So where's the sign-up sheet?
Okay, so I also
Oh,
have,
We have it here somewhere.
you know, so anyways, as a, I don't know if we're ending or not, but I have some more information about the Dayton Village Coalition if you're interested in joining. So about some of the things, how we got started, who we are. I believe you have a handout, right?
Yes,
for
she
this
has
one?
both.
John, you already know about it.
Yes.
But if anyone's interested
What
in
is this
joining our
about?
group, we'd love to have you.
Terry, didn't I give you that sign up sheet? They could put their name down and their contact.
I don't have it. I don't have it.
I thought I gave it
It was
to you.
over there when I came in.
Yeah, it still must be over
I
there
don't
because
know
I don't
what's the
have
matter
it.
with these sign up sheets.
Oh, sure.
Or pass my.
And they're
my-
not
No
here.
problem. I got more.
I was right there when I came in.
Man.
And we'd love to have you. Our next event is our pumpkin lighting, which is at the Grange, another historic
Saturday night.
building.
Terry, what I was suggesting to Randy
It was a
was
sign.
Oh, here it is. Here it is.
whatever we have to
Yeah, I
propose
mean, I
to
just
the
put it on there.
Here's the sign up sheet for Slack-Carroll House.
proposal or
Okay.
You wanna
letter
put
or
your
piece of
John
information
Hancock on there, go
sent
right
out
ahead.
to the entire board of ed and to the superintendent.
It could be
One or
anything, it could be
whichever
anything to do to
So
help.
that way the entire
You know,
matter
whether
which has been sent in writing is
Could be
officially
like
there in
painting,
the
painting,
board
gardening,
And then one of the board of
could
ed
be just
meetings,
general
whosoever is, you know,
Fall
Yeah,
cleanup.
representative
They
from-
represent the fall cleanup.
can go
You
and
can't
speak
believe
about
what's
it. You're given
wonderful
3 minutes. 3
there.
minutes is
No.
enough just to
Yes.
let them know
Someone
that
lives
this
there.
is what we have sent.
We
And
rented it.
then with
I don't know,
the
we-
printouts
it's,
of the
you know, we have
email
a-
that is sent,
a
which
tech
can
center,
be
and
distributed
then
to
there's an
audience.
office, which is
who are,
also the
again,
museum.
community resident of
And right
Dayton.
now,
Because
Terry
talking
has
to
somebody
one
working on the porch
member
because it was.
Yeah, to
full
get
of
that
water.
stage, but he's looking to
And
do a
he's been
bigger
doing a tremendous
bigger
amount.
thing.
No,
with
that's
his
what I'm
nose.
saying,
Yeah.
so to
He's
get
taking
the
one brick off
matter
and
on the table
the-
to all
the
of them.
mortar and
Yeah.
everything.
You know,
It
if
was
we
like
talk
saying-
from one doesn't
Yeah,
match,
so he's
doesn't mean that the
rebuilding
entire
that whole
board
end,
got
but
it, right?
A lot
Or
more
the
work needs to be
superintendent's
done.
office got
We
it.
need
What I'm saying,
support.
suggesting
Wow.
is that if we send an email to all of them, and then that printout to be given to people.
Make sure that you know what you're gonna say before you say it. It's very important, and having it in writing, and having it in a concise way, because they don't need a 20-page paper to read before they meet them. But you need to have it clear what it is you're proposing, and you need to actually run that by some folks before it gets to the board of ed.
Yeah, but I agree to what you're saying. You're right about it. What I'm saying is that it's one way to make sure that everybody
Oh, definitely.
got it.
Yeah.
Rather than talking to one
It
person.
has to be in the
Yeah,
packet.
this is
It
just a
has
new
to be a
information sheet.
packet given
Yeah.
for everything. The concise
Probably a couple things on
package, the
yours.
precise package, and the accurate package.
Grandma's lotions, show that to everybody.
Yeah, so that was the lotions and potions event. One of the exhibits they had at the Slack House that was done by.
She doesn't
one
look
of-
grandma at all, by the way.
That's
She's a sign up
that's
sheet if
the
anyone
after
else is
picture.
interested.
Should have seen her before.
That's right, she's a hag.
But anyway, talking about the local newspaper, I mean, we got a lot of great coverage in the newspaper. I mean, there was always
Yeah.
a story about
There's always
stuff we did.
Does everyone get that ShopRite paper on Wednesday? That like every
The flyer,
Wednesday?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Stop and Shop and
Yeah, it'd be nice to maybe have a flyer in there. How do we get a flyer in there with activities?
With junk mail?
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it.
Maybe I'm the only one
Well,
who
see,
opens.
that's the thing. I think we need some people who know how to do it.
Yeah.
And
Does any,
I'm sure there's some talent in the township for that. Just we haven't found it yet.
Yeah, Dave wants to say something.
Oh, Dave.
does anyone know why the packet publication ceased doing South Brunswick coverage?
Same question.
Around now.
It's usually a question of money. It wasn't financially sound to continue it, and they had to fall. They
We're
couldn't
in the
pay
digital
the.
world now.
Yeah, no,
Couldn't
People
pay the
don't- they-
people.
they
This
just-
has happened all over the country.
Yeah.
Newspapers have closed down. It's so
I
unfortunate.
understand that, but they still have them in, I think, in
Sure do.
other municipalities, unless I'm mistaken.
Make it a video game.
So.
I mean, it's changing time.
Did everybody see the sign-up sheet? So we got, okay, so I'll give this to you, Terry.
Terrific, thank you.
There you go. And I'm bringing this on the bus tour tomorrow,
Yeah.
so I might get a few more people.
I get it to spur on.
Yes. Well, that's good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, senior citizens, you don't
Thank you.
qualify because.
Thank you for.
If there's any other questions about the house, if people want to tour the house.
Oh,
Do that. Yes,
Maybe.
we'll have demonstrations on invitations on Halloween.
Wait a minute.
So,
Demonstrations of
That's all.
amputation.
Well, to wherever I want the bus to go.
Yeah.
I picked out 9
Yeah.
sites
Yeah, there's a lot of-
where
lot of different
No, we
Revolutionary War
usually have
events
an open
occurred.
when we have our events there, like a land exchange. and-
No, it's based on my research over many years.
Oh, okay.
It's a micro of-
Be
So,
happy
yeah,
to
you
give
never
a
know.
tour of
It's
the
a
building,
connection.
around.
So you're going outside.
We are in the process.
No, you don't have to.
Don't have
So the only thing I have
I
to
think
do
I need some
outside
more. I mean,
is
Terry would be the person.
Scavenger
Yeah,
hunt,
that's-
like
that's-
fire.
Sure.
Yes,
Yes, I saw you and your
The
friends.
two
and,
matches that the
So that would be
person in
something.
charge.
Does anyone have any questions about anything before we wrap it up, or at least?
Wrap it up.
I got a comment and a question.
Okay.
Maybe we want to get the local chapter of the American Medical Association, Dental Association to maybe contribute to the
Yeah,
Slack-House.
Peter just mentioned that.
Oh, okay, and maybe even the barbers, because that's who doctors used to do the hair cutting. That's why they have that red stripe on the pole.
That's great.
Right.
Is that right?
And also, do we know what happened to the descendants of Slack and Carroll?
Well, this is kind of a side story, but one day I got an email from one of the relatives of Dr. Carroll, and just out of the blue, and it was his grandson who lived in Philadelphia, and they had this period piece that used to exist in the Slack-Carroll House.
Wow.
And they asked us if we wanted it, and I said, yes, we do. I don't know how I got my husband to do this. He drove to Philadelphia, and we somehow or another got it into the back of his CRV, and we had to tie it down with rope, and I took it up 95 back to Dayton. And with the help of several people, we got it back in the house. So it's actually in the
What is the
museum part.
object?
It's like a sideboard you would have in the dining room.
I thought it's maybe that silver watch we see on the screen.
So a lot of the descendants have passed away or have moved on.
Yeah, I have the names of the
Oh,
family.
yes. By all means.
What are you asking for, Carol or Slack?
Either one.
Okay, Slack. First of all, I have to say, the most interesting thing in the article, the information I have is the doctoral thesis of Dr. Clarence Mulford Slack. The title was The Philosophy of Sleep.
Wow.
Very interesting.
That sounds dated.
Okay, his family. He's the son of Peter Baird Slack and Abigail Skank, Applegate Slack. They were married in 1828. His grandfather, Thomas Slack, was born and lived as a farmer in Middlesex County. Thomas married Rachel Swain, daughter of a prominent New Jersey family. Peter Baird Slack, 1803 to 1842, married Abigail Skank Applegate, 1811, 1888. She was the daughter of Thomas Applegate, and Sarah Baird. The family resided in Hightstown. So Slack is from the general area.
Yes.
He's not like from Ohio or anything like that. They had 6 children: Rachel, Betty, Sarah, John, Lydia, and Clarence. Clarence was about 1 year old when his father died in 1842. His mother later married Joseph Perrine, another famous family from the area, and they had a son, Enoch, who was born in 1853. Okay, and then I have stuff about his children and his marriage and so forth like that. I don't know if you want that or not.
I mean, if it's somewhere on the website. Interesting, from Hightstown, because my brother used to be a councilman there.
Yeah.
Applegate, one of the Applegates was head of the New Jersey Business Industry Association. So maybe they can, I think Christine was the name.
Yeah, they have an interesting spelling if you're going to do a genealogy on it, though. And Applegate is spelled a few different ways, but this one is spelled unusually so. Applegete. Applegate.
Oh, okay. The person I'm thinking of is Applegate, literally.
There's some applicants in
Yeah,
West
so
Windsor.
be careful with that if you're going to do a genealogy.
Gotcha.
What about Carol? Do you have any?
Carol, I have some stuff. That's not the one. I think I put it away. Okay, here we go. He descended from a long line of doctors. He settled in Dayton after having worked with his brother, Dr. William Carroll, who was a medical advisor to Abraham Lincoln. For more than 25 years, he was Middlesex County physician, and at the time of his death, he was South Brunswick Township physician, as well as having a large rural practice. See, back in those days, they had identified one doctor as the primary physician in the area, because remember, we're a rural community. He died in November 1934. There was some discrepancy about his age at death. He was either 81 or 82. And of course, back in those days, it was a little hard to get that exactly right. Dr. Edgar Carroll was born 1848, Keene, Ohio. He had 3 brothers, all of whom became doctors. He graduated from Keene Academy, founded by his father. He taught school for a few years before entering Jefferson Medical College in Philadelphia. When he graduated, he practiced with his brother, Dr. William Carroll. He then settled in Dayton when he was about 30 years old. In addition to being the township and county physician, he also served on the staff at St. Peter's Hospital and was an advisor to St. Joseph's College on Mapleton Road, Plainsboro. Okay. Dr. Carroll's wife and 2 sons, Wallace and Nathaniel, survived him. He was active in the Presbyterian Church. So he had 2 sons, Wallace and Nathaniel. It doesn't say whether they were doctors or not, but they may have been.
And it was his relative that I met in Philadelphia to pick up that sideboard. So that's kind of an interesting story how they reached out to us because they knew about the Slack-Carroll House.
And we have very thick files on both doctors. So if you're interested in the nitty and the gritty, you can come to the archives and pour through these and learn more about these 2 doctors than you ever wanted to know.
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
About Dr. Carroll was on his deathbed, and it's written in Fertile Fields by the book published by Dobbins.
Dobbins.
That on his deathbed, he told his wife to make all the bills, thousands of dollars worth, paid in full. So he was a well-liked doctor in the community, right to the end.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read the poem to
Both of them
finish it up?
graduated from Jefferson.
Yes.
You want me to
No,
read the poem? Oh,
Sorry.
Yes.
The Butterfly Garden, you want me to finish that? That'll end the.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Because we have to have an end note, okay? We have yawning going on. No, that's okay. I notice
What's that
everything.
But one of these doctors are a sleep doctor, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, here we go.
Very good
The
assessment.
Butterfly Garden. I'm glad for the girls who gave me a home, a place to refresh and restore when my wings grow weary and I wish not to roam or face trouble or woe anymore. This is a butterfly emoting. Much thanks to Rebecca for designing the plot. Much thanks to Valerie for raising the funds. These are Girl Scouts. Your deed helps this house, it adds to its charm. A place to recall all the good in Docs Carroll and Slack, who kept souls safe from harm, helped neighbors whenever they could. Much thanks to Chelsea for turning the soil. Much thanks to Katie for planting butterfly weed. I'm glad that your silver turned for me into gold, such a treasure to cherish still, a fine place for my throne, which old monarchs foretold by chance or plan or goodwill. Much thanks to Rachel for planting Boodleja. Much thanks to Emily for setting new stones. Such praise for this space out back in the yard, in history's lengthening shadow, a place where my little ones thrive beneath sun and star, take flight in graceful bravado. Much thanks to Liana for choosing the ornaments. Much thanks to Susie, of course, for the black-eyed Susans.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
Good, we got
Good aid
applause.
to the
That's
Slack-Carroll
great.
House presentation.
Okay.
And there's cake.
Oh yeah, well we have cake here, so we have plates too. So that's it for tonight's meeting. If anybody has any questions, you can just email me, and I'll have this up on YouTube. If anybody, I'm gonna send that to people that couldn't attend the meeting. This would be recorded. Okay, so that's it, and good night, and thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy, for organizing this on behalf of the Slack House.
Anybody, incidentally, Kingston Historical Society has its annual meeting on the 14th. That's a Tuesday evening at 7:30 at the Kingston Firehouse. And the subject will be a 660-page book that was compiled about the village of Kingston. It's fascinating. And you wouldn't think that Kingston was the murder capital of the world, but come to the talk and you'll find out. You guys had nasty
But
weapons.
tell them who wrote the book.
It was written by Marcus McParlin, who compiled it from news sources and the like as his 8th grade project at the
A young
Chinese language
person.
immersion
There
school.
you go.
Wow.
It is amazing.
It's a thick book.
It is
Yeah.
amazing.
It's a thick book.
Of course,
There's still hope for
of course,
this
he wrote it in
country.
1893, so it's not young anymore.
$80 for the book?
$80 for the hardcover, and I think that's the
And if anybody needs stuff on 13 Stripes, I have
7:30
information,
on
my
the
latest
Tuesday the
book.
14th.
Okay, all right, good night out there.
The publisher makes money. Do you have it?
I do.
You do.
Aaron, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
This